there is some funky things happening in the AI space because this was revealed and it's jaw-dropping. This is a post posted by Pirate Nation and it reads, Nvidia allegedly contacted Anna's archive directly for access to 500 terabytes of pirated books and papers for pre-training their LLMs. So for some context, Anna's archive is, according to Wikipedia, an open source search engine for shadow libraries, aka they have a lot of pirated books. They themselves aren't like hosting the pirated books. They basically like are an access point that gives you links to get the pirated books. There is like discourse in the author space where they're not happy finding out their books are on Anna's archive because obviously the original creators aren't getting a fair cut of compensation for people that are reading and consuming the content. However, Anna's archive claims to be like a digital library that's preserving the world's knowledge. You know, it's kind of 50-50. I'm curious about your thoughts on something like Anna's archive, something like this, where it's like having access to pirated works. Do you think this is like beneficial to preserving knowledge, or do you think that this is something that is like undercutting authors and creatives? It's definitely like a 50-50. Like, I do think people, you know, students deserve access to textbooks and things like that. And in this day and age, textbooks are real expensive. So you gotta do what you gotta do to get access to those. But like, you know, for books and things that like libraries exist, you know, if you want to read a romance book, go to your local library because authors will still get a cut if you go get a book from a library, you know. Also, on a side note, if you want to support your local authors for free, you can go contact your local library and ask them to go stock like a specific book from an author. The library will then buy the book and then the author will get paid for that. And then you can also get access to the book from the library. But that's a whole side point. So it continues, reading, Anna's warned them that the collections were illegal and copyrighted. Nvidia's data strategy team pushed anyways. Executives gave the green light within days, per internal docs, because yes, this is all in a lawsuit. So we have this website, videocards.com, with an article put out January 21st, written by Ycry about this lawsuit. So in an excerpt from the class action complaint, it says, I am on the data strategy team at Nvidia. We are exploring, including Anna's archive and pre-training data for our LLMs. We're figuring out internally whether we are willing to accept the risk of using this data, but would like to speak with your team to get a better understanding of LLM related work you have done. They clearly acknowledge that there is risk in terms of, I don't know, yoinking a whole bunch of pirated data that you know you don't got the rights to. So it continues that Anna's archive warned them it's illegal. Nvidia management gave the green light to proceed with the piracy. And then Anna's archive offered Nvidia millions of pirated copied books. They also offered access to several million books from Internet Archive. And this totals about 500 terabytes of data. And the plaintiffs also accused Nvidia of other pirate sources like Books3 datasets, Sci-Hub, and Z Library. And apparently, Nvidia argued before that AI training is fair use and that models learn patterns instead of storing books. The case is ongoing, and these details come from the plaintiff's latest filings. I'm not a lawyer, but I do think the idea of fair use by these AI companies, they're definitely stretching the definition a little bit, in my personal pleb opinion. Because I don't know, what do you mean downloading 500 terabytes of pirated data and training your LLM on this and calling this fair use? You know you're only arguing fair use because this is something you're trying to profit from. Now, are you curious how much this costs? Well, we have an answer to this, possibly. This is a tweet put out by Ed Newton Rex, writing, a few months ago, I was curious to know how much Anna's archive was charging AI developers for access to their massive library. So I emailed them faking interest. And here's their reply. And read this. It says, hi. Expert Access gives you direct high-speed SFTP access to all our files and more. Files that are already released through torrents can be obtained for free that way. However, high-speed access is much faster. For full unlimited access to all these collections, we ask for a donation of $200,000 to be made using crypto. We're also open to trading this access for collections we don't have yet, or prorating access proportionally to parts of our collection. And they also say that if you don't require access to the full collection, they recommend you get a membership so that you can stack downloads. So interesting. For $200,000 paid through crypto, which I wonder why you're paying through crypto, right? Because you can't really trace that. So Ed adds that this includes more than 60 million books. And also, he writes, this is also the group that recently stole Spotify's entire music catalog. So expect this to be available to high rollers too. This is the collection Nvidia is accused of accessing for training. Training on pirated works is rife in the AI industry. It's been embraced by some of the biggest AI companies in their greed-fueled race to win the AI market. When they claim what they're doing is somehow fair, no, Note, Nvidia is claiming fair use. Remember that not only is it theft, which is bad enough, it supports further theft by funding pirates. We desperately need a hard reset in the AI industry. It must turn away from theft and start paying people whose work it relies on. And this is interesting. Ed adds, also worth noting, it was $100,000 just a few months before. The 2 times in price suggests high demand, which is scary because likely, very likely, and I don't know for sure, my hypothesis is that Nvidia is not the only company that has tried to contact Anna's archive for access. And this is interesting because another user comments, actually all the data is open source according to Anna's archive. Licensing pirated material seems like a weird move. And Ed says, 1, it isn't a license. 2, the data, which is stolen work, isn't open source. So this is definitely like really tricky, right? Because like people are really 50-50 about this because a lot of people really like Anna's archive for preserving all this like written work literature and providing access to everybody. Again, I'm just curious about your thoughts. I personally am like really 50-50 about it because I do believe that everybody should get access to like reading and literature and like information. At the same time, there are a lot of authors and creatives that get undercut in the process of having all this pirated work widely available. It's just kind of interesting. But in a breath of good news, Ed adds 2 huge book publishers, and I'm not going to pronounce these correctly, Hachette and Cengage, have moved to join authors and illustrators in suing Google for allegedly using their work to train AI models. They write in the complaint, quote, faced with a choice between respecting intellectual property rights or competing in the AI race, Google chose to steal a massive body of content from plaintiffs and the class to train its AI model, end quote. It's great to see different sides of the book industry uniting to fight exploitation by AI companies. This is most definitely really interesting. And I'm also very curious about the final results of something like this, like a lawsuit like this, because this will set the precedent for the future as to what is allowed and what isn't. Because again, right, like these companies are claiming fair use for their AI training when those who are, you know, the creators of the works are claiming that it's theft and it's infringing on their copyright. And this is also interesting too. We have this post from Glenn Gabe writing, 79% of 100 top news websites in the UK and US are blocking at least one crawler used for AI training out of OpenAI's GPT-bot, Claude-bot, Anthropic AI, CC-bot, Apple-bot Extended, and Google Extended. Meanwhile, 71% are blocking AI bots from crawling their sites for retrieval or live searches. And among the 50 biggest, the article lists the BBC, the New York Times, Daily Mail, Telegraph, Sky News, AP News, New York Post, Newsweek, NBC News, Wall Street Journal, Metro, Business Insider, ABC News, BuzzFeed, HuffPost, and The Hill. So 34% of the top 50 blocked all bots. And 14% of the top 50 publishers allowed access to all 11 AI crawlers analyzed. Fox News, The Independent, GB News, Substack, The Standard, The Drudge Report, and Politico. And Telegraph CEO adds, publishers are blocking AI bots using the robots.txt because there's almost no value exchange. LLMs are not designed to send referral traffic, and publishers still need traffic to survive. So most of us block AI bots because these companies are not willing to pay for the content their model has been trained on, and their output is almost entirely internal. Yeah, because this makes sense, right? Like these news websites, how do they make money exactly? They either make money from you buying subscriptions, right? Because in this day and age, nobody gets a physical newspaper anymore, really. Or by you going to their webpage and from your traffic on their webpage. Getting on their webpage, getting traffic means you're looking at the ads on the page. If there's any affiliate links kind of like nested in there and you click it, they might make some money. These are some ways they would make money. What ChatGPT and these AI bots are doing when they're scraping these news sites and summarizing it for you, you yourself are then not going to the news website anymore. So the only person who benefits is going to be the AI bot, right? It's only going to be ChatGPT or whichever other bot is like crawling these websites and giving you summaries. So of course they're not going to want to allow the bots to go and train off their work anymore. And on a complete side note, and maybe this is me being a little bit too scared, right? Curious how you guys feel about this, but I think that the overconsumption of AI summaries is going to lead to an intellectual crisis. Because what do summaries do? They shorten information and present it to you. On paper, that sounds great because you get a shorter, more concise way to consume the information. What happens in theory? There's going to be important things that are going to be left out. There are going to be tonations, there's going to be intent, there's going to be extra parts of the quote that might not be given to you that in full context might change how this image looks to you, right? How this article looks or how this article reads to you. If all you read are summaries, you do miss a fair chunk of the point in the article. And this leads to a situation where summaries can be biased, where there can be situations where it's summarized in a way to favor one side or another side or one outcome or another. That's why, is to get the full picture of anything, it's best that you read everything cover to cover yourself and then you yourself summarize it afterwards so that you can interpret the information and put your own full critical thinking on what you just read. But if all you read is only a 10% snippet of the actual piece, you're gonna miss a lot of the picture. That does get a little bit tricky because a lot of people are relying on these AI summaries now. So it's just a bit scary, you know what I'm saying? I think there are use cases where a quick summary is helpful. You know, if you're a busy person and having a little email summarizer for you to like shorten things out, that could maybe speed up your work process. Sure. Again, just note that like there is a trade-off, you know, and the trade-off with speed is that you lose information. I personally think AI reliance is making us dumber. But I would love to hear your thoughts about that. For me, I don't trust these AI summaries. I still go and read it on the article myself just to fully see what it said. Because there's been times where the summary looks one way. It looks like there's like a specific point that's being made. And then I go to the article and the full quote was omitted. And in the full quote, it actually paints a completely different picture. And I'm like, wait, what? Hello? So anyways, this is a big ramble thing, but the whole Nvidia thing with Anna's archive, I would love to hear your thoughts about that in the comment section down below. So anyways, if you guys like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also have a coffee with free resources like a free sponsorship guide if you are a streamer or a content creator or somebody who wants to become a content creator. I also stream on Twitch 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. I might move Wednesday to Thursday, we'll see, at 6 p.m. PST. So I hope to catch you all there or in another video. Peace.